In this video, we're going to talk about how to practice, how to get some skills working with major scales. So first of all, let's practice a little bit more what's involved in writing scales starting on funny notes. So let's do a hard one. Let's do D flat. So again, just as in our practice before, I can just write up a scale from D to D, and then I'll figure out where to put in those accidentals. So there I go, starting on D flat. Now if I'd had a D, D to E would be a whole step. So D flat to E, that's like a whole step and a half. That's too big. So D to E flat to make our whole. If it had been an E to F, that would be a half step. Now it's E flat to F, and that's what we want, a whole step. F to G, whole step. We want a half step, so F to G flat. And here, actually, we can start to economize a little bit. You're probably getting the idea. We want a whole step. We used to have a whole step between G and A. Now that we've hiked G down to G flat, we want a flat for our A as well. We used to have a whole step between A and B, so now we need to hike that down as well to create the whole step between A flat and B flat. We want yet another whole step. Now we've actually done some more useful work. B and C used to be a half step apart. The flat hikes that down, so now we've got a whole step there from B flat to C. And because, of course, we'll end on our proper starting point, C and D are a whole step apart, so we hike that down by a half step. Okay. If that was too fast for you, my faster version of running through this thing to create this D flat scale, let's just listen to that quickly. So there's my D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C, D flat. If what I was doing was too quick for you, that means you need some practice working with whole and half steps in the scale. That's a good thing. There are various things online that can help you with that, but I especially recommend that you go to one of the sessions with the tutors. You need some extra drill. You need to get to the point where that speed that I just did it at would be comfortable for you to follow. Now let's do another one. We'll start with actually a note that sounds just the same as D flat, and that's C sharp. And let's pause just for a sec. Introduce a helpful concept here. C and D are a whole step apart. So if I go a half step up from C, or a half step down from D, I'm going to end up at the same place. When I play C sharp 4 on the piano, I'm hitting the same key as when I play D flat 4 on the piano. Those sound exactly the same, and we have a term for these. These are called enharmonic equivalents. And actually, let's name the property, which is equivalence. Enharmonic equivalence. Two notes that have the same sound, but they're spelled differently. In Western tonal music, it is tremendously important that you use the right spelling for the names. It's not just a matter of getting the performer to hit the right keys on the piano or whatever. It's tremendously important that we spell notes correctly. And that's something we're going to talk about more in class, and that's going to become very apparent over the course of the next weeks. But we just did the D flat major scale. Now, oh my goodness, the C sharp major scale. What a crazy scale. You hardly ever encounter a scale like that. Isn't that going to be hard? No, that's actually going to be really simple, right? Because if I write out a C major scale, and I want to preserve that same whole, whole, half pattern, and if I throw a sharp in front of my starting point, well, I just throw sharps in front of everything. So that one is actually really easy. It kind of does itself, C sharp major. Now let's do some other kinds of exercises that your worksheets are going to ask you to do. So suppose that I tell you that I want the G major scale and let's say scale degree 6. How are you going to, and I want you to write down for me a scale degree 6 in G major. Well, basically what you have to do is go through the whole scale in your head. You don't have to actually write out these pitches, but here's our starting point of G. So we want to go up a whole to A, that's good. A second whole takes us to B, that's good. We want a half step up, that's a C, so far so good. No changes needed. We want another whole up to D, that's what we've got. Now we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We want our sixth note, and that's a whole step above the D, that's exactly what we've got. So we can just write that down. Now, in the very beginning, you may find that you need to write whole, whole, half, whole, whole. Okay, I've got it. And then you just write it out small, and then erase that, something like that. Try and move as quickly as you can to the point where you can just kind of do that whole, whole, half calculation in your head to end up notating a scale degree 6 in G major, or whatever it may be in that particular part of the worksheet. Now we can get at this another way. We can say we are in E flat major, and we want to know what scale degree that is. Okay? So for that, you say, okay, E flat would be my scale degree 1. F would be 2, a half step away, just like I wanted. A whole step away, just like I wanted. Another whole to G. I need a half at this point, so G to A would have been a whole step. G to A flat, we'll get our half step. And then a whole step, because A to B would have been a whole step. A flat to B flat is also a whole step. There we go. I've gotten up in the scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There I am. And this is scale degree 5. Or the worksheet may ask you to give the name. It's the dominant, either one. Now, so in minor, this will get a little trickier. But you actually, it's good practice if you at least go through that in your head. But you know what? A lot of the time, it's not going to be quite that tricky. And there's a shortcut here. You can just say, well, I know that that's part of the scale. And any scale starting on E, you know, I'll do whatever with accidentals, but all I have to care about is that that's some kind of a B. And if this is some kind of an E scale, start on E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to B. There we go, it's scale degree 5. No, it's probably a good idea for you to do the reality checking to see that, yeah, in fact, B flat is the right version of B to be scale degree 5 in the particular E scale that's E flat, but you could actually skip that step for speed. Finally, in some ways, the hardest of these, and let me pick, fine. Suppose you're given that pitch, and you're told that's the subdominant. And what it wants you to tell you is, okay, that's the subdominant. What key am I in? How do I figure this one out? Okay, well now I have to work backwards in my pattern. Let's erase this for a sec so I've got some room to work with. The subdominant is scale degree 4, so I'm going to have to count back to 1. 3, 2, 1. So whole, whole, half. From a G to an F is a whole step. So from a G flat to an F is a half step. That's exactly what I want. 3 is an F. F to E is a half step. I want a whole step. So that's going to be E flat. E to F is, E to D going down is a whole step. So to preserve that whole step, if I'm starting from a flat, I also need a flat in front of my D. So this turns out to be D flat. The answer is, if the question is, you've got a G flat and you know that that's the subdominant, what scale are you using? You are using a G flat major scale. Now again, you want to get to the point as quickly as possible that you just kind of get to know these scales And you start to see these things a lot quicker. But in the beginning, when you need to work it out step by step, that's the way you do it.